Do you see Kosovo as more advanced in some areas? I mean, I know take the EU accession process out of the equation, but how would you compare them in terms of governance?
So that's an interesting thing. I think the EU accession element does play a role. I mean, in Kosovo, again, 25 years of international investment, 25 years of a focus on ensuring that Kosovan political development was as close to the European model as possible. Mm-hmm. I think in some ways has allowed them to create the kind of playing field which feels, in a sense, feels more normal, I think, to a North European. I think Albania still faces some real challenges. At the same time, we've really seen progress. One of the things that I think both in Kosovo and in Albania exists is people sometimes forget just how far they've come. And there's a real, for you and I, maybe less for you, but for me, as very much as an observer, I think what you see is that both countries have come a heck of a long way in the last 20, 25 years. But because of the appetite for change, because of the appetite for improvement, because of the appetite for progress, sometimes people forget how far they've come.
Yes.
And I think this is why, comparisons, like you, I'm sure, which one's better? Is it better in Kosovo or is it better in Albania?
Impossible question to answer.
Each country has real advantages and real positives. The real answer, and this is, of course, linked to so many other issues, is both countries have huge potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that is the real issue at the moment, is how to really develop that potential to the best effect. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that's where EU accession comes in. There are always going to be people who will say to me, well, the UK is outside of the EU, so do you really think it's a good idea? The honest answer is yes, of course it's a good idea.
Yes.
It's what Albanians want.
Yes.
It's what the Albanian government wants. Mm-hmm. It's what it seems to me all the political parties want.
Yes.
So there is that will there. And therefore, that this is an opportunity for change and for positive, progressive change.
You're completely right. People say, oh, nothing's changed. It's terrible. Nothing's got better. And then I think, I've been here 8 years and I'm visiting somewhere that I haven't visited for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or I'm looking at photos I took 8 years ago and the difference is staggering. Overwhelming. Good, but there are things I don't like. Maybe they're building a little bit too much, but even in terms of infrastructure and things like that, my daughter goes to public school now.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have considered that 8 years ago. There's been a lot of investment in facilities and things like that. The hospital, we have a new hospital now. It's different to how it was. Is it perfect? No. Was it perfect where I lived in Malta for 10 years? Absolutely not. Was it perfect in the UK? Is it now? No, it's not. No. Every country has its own challenges, and I really do think there's been a huge improvement, but of course there's always room for more of that.
But that's where, to be frank, that's where things like elections are important, because it's important that this is a moment for people to understand and express their opinion about the future they want. And the important thing is to be in a country where a vision exists.
Yes.
And that vision very clearly exists here in Albania.
Yes. I want to ask as well, you came from Kosovo, but before taking up your post in Albania, did you have any preconceptions about what it might be like to actually live here, to be working here? And was there any specific advice that your predecessor gave you that you can share?
Well, I've known Alistair for over 20 years. Both he and I have a past in the Middle East, so we've known each other for a long time. His advice was really just to take my time and to take the time to understand the differences between Kosovo and here, but also to engage and listen to people, whether that's within my own team in the embassy, but more broadly as well, because I think if there are differences, preconceptions that I came with, they came from being outside the country. We've talked about the EU accession thing, but what struck me, and I think you come from outside, you go, accession by 2030. Well, I can't really see that. Just don't, how's that going to work? It's very ambitious. But then you come here and you talk to people, and you suddenly understand that whatever the kind of bureaucratic or technical challenges in that, the political will and the social will, because I say people want to be there, really does exist. And that if there is a country at the moment that is part of EU enlargement, and it seems to me Albania has the best chance. It really does.
I've also had the case where people have heard, Albania wants to join by 2030, and they're like, oh, and then they come here and they're like, actually, it's a lot better than I thought it might have been. They can see that it's a European city in 2025.
Oh, sure.
It's not some little Balkan backwater,
No.
They're very positively surprised. I was recently traveling with a group of journalists from the UK and Italy, and that was their sentiment completely. They were expecting something quite different, but they were surprised, that we had internet coverage everywhere and electric taxis and this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, every time we have visitors, friends and family, they're always surprised. This is not what people expect.
Yes.
Again, in part because Albania for so long was unknown. Was almost an alien place when it isn't now. And Tirana, frankly, is a modern Southern European city. Yeah. And it feels to me as if I'm in Italy or in Greece. And of course, that's in part because of Albania's history. And again, it isn't. In a sense, it isn't as linked as the rest of the Balkans to the north or to the east. It's very firmly linked to the west and the south.
Yes.
Italy and Greece are the historic areas for Albania, or for the majority of this coastal area of Albania, and so understandably, the influences are going to be there.